Good morning. Oh, no, 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 no. Good afternoon. It's already noon to college football time with Avery and Miguel. Week 12 is in the books, and we're gonna try something different this time. So my partner Avery here, she has the Navy midshipman hoodie with the background. And if you guys saw the preview, I predicted Navy to win against South Florida. And they did. To my amazement, they did 41 to 38. Avery, what did you make of the game?
This was a really good game and a really good game for Navy because their conference is a bit of a misnomer, but I think Navy did a very good job. They were playing at home, and I've always stated that, college, home games, even for our service schools, are an experience, and I think they work better for the home schools. So Sparta going to Annapolis, you know, they're ranked. They want to make sure that they are a contender for a conference title. They played a very physical game. Navy, coming off that loss against Notre Dame, they also wanted to be part of that conversation in the conference title picture. So this was a great game for both teams. South Florida, I think their defense just kind of crumbled a bit. They were working very well in the first half, but like we always say with our service schools, these are women that are really going to protect our country, and there was no quit in Navy, and they just kept on kept on bringing it. They made plays, they capitalized on takeaways, and their defense needed to do their job when needed. And like we got, I think this is, easily a top 10 game for this season because not only does Navy upset South Florida, and South Florida has, been this entire year playing spoiler, but now Navy is thrust into that conference title competition.
For me, the players of the game were the running backs, the backfield. Texter and Woodson, they combined for 3 touchdowns and rushed over 200 yards, and combined 21 carries. So the running game was sensational for Navy. What a victory for them! They now improved to 8-2. They're now 6-1 in American Conference play. So salute to my Navy midshipmen. Man, I am so happy that I got that pick right. Blake Horvath, he played. I'm telling you, it might be a broken record, but it's a great, deep appreciation that I have for these military schools, and Navy's one of them.
I agree. I completely agree. And it's good, even in the realm of college football, like the Army Navy game is kind of something that everybody will watch because that's really like the final game of the season before bowl season starts. But I think now the service schools are getting the recognition because not only are you seeing these young men that are eventually going to go into the service and defend our country, you also see them have a great love for the sport that not only propelled them into a service school, and we're not only talking about Navy, but also Army and Air Force, that they love that sport. They love the camaraderie so much that they want to take that camaraderie, those skills that they built, and they want to take that into the service as well as defending our country as well.
That's indeed very well said, Avery. Let's go to the next one. The biggest comeback of the day and the biggest comeback perhaps in SEC history. Texas A&M Aggies, 28 unanswered points. The first half, they looked like they were dead in the water. We don't know what happened. But then that third quarter, they erupted with 21 points and then seven more in the fourth quarter. What a tremendous comeback by the Aggies. This one, they stole the headlines. Um, I feel like it was the biggest headline that they stole because I want to say that Oklahoma was second because they beat, sorry to bring that up, but we're going to talk about that in a few. But Texas A&M, I mean, what a team! What a team, Avery. This team is all around talented.
I completely agree with you, but at the same time, granted, their comeback it is literally the headline of the weekend, but it also could be a bit detrimental to their playoff chances. You came back from a win against say this. You give it up to South Carolina for taking Texas A&M to the brink that they did. But granted, I'm still undefeated. It could be detrimental to their playoff standing. But I do give Texas A&M credit because once the Gamecocks got rolling, Texas A&M could have just said, "Okay, we're just high," and then just flip what happens. But really, what you saw is grit, determination that we've always seen a lot of college football teams when we think they're down and out, all of a sudden they come back, but also at the same time, when you think teams don't have a chance, that's when they start playing really good football. So this is a tale of two games. We saw South Carolina playing, some really good football, get to Texas A&M, but then at the saw Texas A&M saying we are not going to go quite to that good night, and they just came back, came back, came back, came back, and they made perfect opportunities they were given, and like we have Texas A&M winning, but they won by a close game. So we're going to see how the committee is going to look at that, versus other ranked teams this weekend that won decisively. But definitely, kudos to Texas A&M, but also, granted, a is a win, but moral victories may not count for anything. But South Carolina needs to be proud of themselves. Now, granted, they may need to look at that deep, but that Carolina offense was no joke. They had a game plan that was working for them, and that could have been the upset of the week. But it's still, a round of applause for the Gamecocks. They and they took the Aggies.
And now we move on to Oklahoma versus Alabama. Huge win for Oklahoma. They won 23-21. In the first quarter, they took the first punch. Then Alabama answered back in the second quarter. And then their fourth quarter was like, right here. But Oklahoma just, barely edged out. But this was a great victory by Oklahoma Sooners, a team that started 5-0. Then, with the John Mateer injury, they went 2-2. And it seems like they're slowly rising up again. So it could be one of these things where they're probably getting hot at the right time. They're clicking at the right time, or it could just be one of those things where it's a fluke. So we don't know. We don't know. It's uncertain how the rest of this month will play out and next month. But both Oklahoma and Alabama are 8-2 now. Oklahoma, they're 4-2 in SEC conference play, while Alabama, they still remain strong 6-1 in SEC. So, but this was clearly a nice little heavyweight fight, low scoring heavyweight fight between both teams, as Oklahoma is number 11 and Alabama is number 4 in AP poll.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a need for Oklahoma. I think if Alabama won, would definitely be far as the playoff, but Oklahoma went their conversation. They actually leapfrogged Alabama. I believe Alabama still in the top 10. I believe they are 10, but Oklahoma is just two spots ahead of them at 8. And it worked in there for Alabama to win this game. Yes, it is a close, but much needed momentum for Oklahoma. Uh, like I said, just like you said, in the SEC conference, definitely the more challenging conference. And looking at the ranks going into potential college playoff, I mean, what you have potentially is SEC teams um, dominating for the choice. But that's the layout of the conference. It is very competitive, but also you have some of the best schools in college football making their stake of that they won the national title. So good job on a much needed win, definitely. And John McTeer looked pretty solid, so let's see how the season, two more games for both teams. Let's see how it works on both sides for Alabama and Oklahoma.
Now let's go to the ACC Friday night game. Clemson barely survived. They beat Louisville 2019. A lot of things you saw in this game. You saw a botched punt in this game. You saw two missed field goals by Louisville. You saw an extra point being missed in the second quarter. And Dabo Sweeney said it himself that they most likely could have lost this game because they made so many mistakes. But a win is a win. Now Clemson, they're now 5-5, 500 team, and they're 500 as well in the ACC conference play. But this is definitely one of the most, I would say, arguably, I would say probably arguably the biggest victory of the season for Clemson, at least in the ACC conference standpoint.
Oh, I completely agree with you. Clemson needed this win. They needed this win. For Louisville, it would have been a great win to catapult them in the CC conference conversation, but it's a great win for Clemson because they still have a chance at bowl eligibility, but also it also kind of stops the naysayers. I think we both talked about it. We don't think Dabo Sweeney's job is in question, but upsetting Louisville did a really good job for the Clemson athletic department, the Clemson football program, to say that even if we're down, don't count us out. And if you are not taking us seriously, we can try. Now, granted, it was a close win, but again, a win is a win. And in this case, on Clemson's side, it's momentum for them. It's for momentum for them. And I think that's going to work in Clemson's benefit trying to finish the season out strong, possible bowl game. Louisville, I think it's still in the ACC competition, even with us, but they can take a look at it, what worked, what didn't work, back, and hey, we're going to finish this. We feel that you know we need to be taking like a lot of teams that are ranked. You see these teams ranked, and you're like, okay, this team makes sense. This team makes sense. And then you have teams that are in the top 25 don't do. And I think it's time that when those teams get ranked, we need to talk about them because when those teams aren't getting their due, not getting their recognition, they are probably the most dangerous teams. And we've seen a season with a full of teams and teams have been burned by it, So Louisville kind of, get back on the saddle, see how that works for them. Clemson, great win in their favor, just one win away from a bowl. So good job for Clemson. Granted, a close win, but a win for this team that they surely needed.
A team that was very close of winning, but they lost at the end as time expired. That is the Michigan Northwestern game. Northwestern came very close of, you know, getting a victory over Michigan. The first half, it was kind of like it was kind of like not so interesting. But then in the third quarter, things started picking up. Michigan, they had most of the momentum in the third quarter, and then Northwestern came back in the fourth quarter and grabbed the lead 22 to 21. But then Michigan, they made the plays, and then they won it with 31-yard field goal. The ending was anticlimactic in my opinion, but Michigan, they came out with a victory. They improved to 6-1 in Big Ten conference play. They're 8-2. And it's funny because Michigan seems like this team that is being not talked as much, I guess, because there's other teams that are just stealing the headlines. But there's that. Aside from that one, Iowa USC game, USC came out on top 26 to 21. They're now 8-2, 6-1 in Big Ten conference play. Uh, they absolutely, outscore Iowa 16 to zip in the second half. Iowa did not have nothing whatsoever to show for in the second half.
No, with Michigan, I think they did a good job containing Northwestern. That game kind of is like, there's a you're seeing a movie, like some football games are like a movie that kind of flies under the radar, but then all of a sudden it gets good later, but at the same time you're kind of disappointed. Granted, Michigan, very, very well program, but this year they've been hot and cold. And yes, we haven't talked about them because when you have programs that there is an expectation and the expectation not met, we kind of just don't pay, but Michigan's bad. I mean, 8-2 is a pretty good record, and they're ranked. Yes, it was a close win, but like I've mentioned before, when you're ranked, your job is to win games. Whether it be close that it could be detrimental to where you are, the win helps. With um in USC, I think an opportunity with USC, but at the same time, again, USC is another program a lot of us we're not talking about. And they've quietly been like, hey, we won. Here we are. Don't ignore us. Hey, you're still on our schedule. You know, it may not be a pretty win, but winning is the point. And when you're trying to get into, a playoff and work on that conference title, that makes all the difference. That makes absolutely all the difference. So definitely Michigan, USC programs, great flying are, years, but definitely a couple things we might need to pay in these last couple weeks of the season.
Yep, yep, indeed. So Iowa State, which I'm wearing the hoodie, by the way. I'm a Miami Hurricane fan and Arizona State fan. Don't get it twisted, guys. But I love the color of Ohio State, red, white, gray, and gray. They dominated UCLA 48 to 10. Indiana remain undefeated. They beat Wisconsin 31 to 7. Georgia Bulldogs, oh my goodness. 35 to 10 over Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, and
Texas
I think
Longhorns, they had a nightmare. This was a nightmare
yeah,
game for them.
yeah, but believe it or not, this was a great statement win for Georgia. They needed a statement win, decisive win for them, and unfortunately it came at the benefit of Texas. But yeah, congrats to the Bulldogs on that one.
Arizona defeated Cincinnati 30 to 24. Virginia beat Duke 34 to 17.
Yeah,
Virginia,
another ranked
Virginia,
team.
but Virginia
Absolutely.
is hot. They're hot.
Absolutely. Another ranked team we're not kind of talking about, because they're in the ACC, but granted, definitely need to keep an eye on Virginia. Great win this weekend for Virginia.
Ole Miss Rebels took down Florida Gators 34 to 24. Ole Miss 10-1, 6-1 SEC conference play. And there's one key one. Oh, yes, there we go. I found it. Notre Dame, they got the decisive win that we were hoping for, and they did it. Tremendous performance. They won 37 to 15 over Pitt, a good team
Yeah.
that's ranked. So Notre Dame, like we said, Avery, they're peaking. They're peaking at the right time.
And that was definitely a decisive win. Like I said, it was a decisive win, a much needed one, more momentum for the Fighting Irish. And they're in a really good spot right now. They're in a really good spot right now.
Is there any final thing you want to say before we wrap up?
Oh yeah, also, decisive by you and Utah. another teams that you gotta stay on the lookout. Um, so wins for two teams that, were in the playoff conversation and coachings, LSU and Penn State this weekend. LSU and Penn State got wins this weekend. Granted, they're not like the biggest wins, but I think they're really for the program, especially what has been happening this season with those football programs. And I think the interim coaches need to be celebrated, getting their young men's head in the game to play and going out and getting those two wins. But again, like we've said this entire season has been nothing but surprise after surprise over the weekend, and is what it means to college football fan. You can have your team, you can be disappointed, you can also be excited that every weekend you're going to get something that smile on your face.
Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to College Football Summer in Go. That's our recap. Those are our thoughts. Stay tuned for Thursday, Friday, whatever, for week 13 to give our previews. And once again, we appreciate you guys for always tuning in. If you guys enjoy this content, please give a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And as always, be safe and may God bless each and every one of you. Have a great Monday. Enjoy the rest of the day. May God bless each and every one of you.
Wonderful weekend, everyone.